forget. And so now I will do a quick introduction of our dear friend, Janaina. Super happy to have you with us here in the InnerLight. Thank you for all of you that are online with us and all our friends here as well. So Janaina, her nickname is Jana Machado. I will read her small bio. So she was born in Blumenau, Santa Catarina, then moved to the US in 2002. In 2007, she was introduced to spiritism by a friend while visiting for the first time at the Spiritist Society Seeds of Light in Fort Myers, where she is a member since then. At this moment, Jenny is a board member of the Spiritist Society Seeds of Light and the Spiritist Federation of Florida. Jana is also part of the Children and Youth Committee of the Spiritist Federation of Florida, and Jana considers herself to be an ongoing learner and an apprentice of the Spiritist body of knowledge. Thank you so much, Jana, for being here, and thank you so much for the subject that she will be talking, because the title of the subject is the one we will be talking, the Family and Friends Spiritist Retreat in the June 29. So I'm hoping to all of you to purchase your ticket so you can join us in June 29. It's a Sunday where we're going to spend the whole day together. We will have breakfast, lunch, lots of amazing activities, spiritist activities. And then we also can go to the beach. Summer in Miami, yes. Beach is also available for us. So, Tama is all yours. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. I am super happy. I have known John for so many years and you, and now I'm getting to know new people. I also know you. Though I don't remember the name. I'm horrible with names. But it is such a pleasure to be here because the Spiritist Center I belong to, it is very small because we are in a city where it is super big, like Catholics and evangelical. So being a spiritist among a city where people actually, we have hundreds of Brazilian churches, and it's like I'm always amazed at how full they are. And though the Spiritist Center is not as full with people, we know that we have spirits.
Well, let me tell you, this Spiritist Center is 100% in English. So in addition to your challenge, we have extra challenge.
Yes, and I was just talking about that with John on the way here, from the office to here. And that is a big, I compliment you guys because I know how hard it is, to have a Spiritist Center fully in English. With that being said, I just want to say hello to the people that are joining us, online, as well as the people who are here. I will, this is more like, a fraternal talk where we will go over, some important points from the book, from Paul and Stephen, but also as a spiritist in the United States. Because as I was coming, driving over, I was listening to almost like a podcast from the book, because I always like to have that on the back of my mind, even if I'm driving, because, it gives me insights. And the topic that, Angy asked me to focus on was love, work, trust, and forgive. So before I begin, does everybody know or have read the book, Paul and Stephen? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so if someone has not, okay, after this, I would encourage you to, get the book and read, because it is a very uplifting story because it tells a story about a spirit, but that is also our journey because us as spirit, we have that same urge, to work, to love, to trust, to forgive. In this part of the book, we are the second part of the book, and Paul, which is Saul, he has been going through a lot of challenges. But remember that Saul, he was born into a family.
Just because the group is not spiritist,
Okay.
they are learning about
Okay.
spiritism. When you talk Paul and Saul, they don't even know who is the
Okay.
people.
Okay.
So just clarify.
Okay.
Saint Paul.
Okay. So in the book, we're going to talk about this one person that will change names at a certain point in the book because of his journey, spiritual journey. So Saint Paul begins in the book as Saul. That's his birth, name. And my Kindle turned off. And he was born into a family of privilege. So he was born into a family of privilege. He received great education. He enjoyed one of the greatest benefits of his time. He was a Roman citizen, athletic and intelligent. And it did not take too long for young Saul to experience success. So in his journey, he does care about, the sacred, from his teachings, what he have learned as a Roman. And then when Christ brings his message, and now we have the message being spread, the good news, he starts, I'm going to just give, since, some people may not know, he started as a persecutor because he was so faithful to his faith that he did it in good faith because he thought he was doing something good, protecting his faith against something that was new that he didn't know. So with that, so many people have suffered along the way. There comes a time where he becomes, he's going after someone, Ananias. And then during that moment, he is blinded. He gets blind. So he stays in a little, house for some days, and he does not understand what's happening. I will not really go into the details, because then you need to read, otherwise I'll give too many spoilers. Why he got blind and who got him blind, But something so important is in this part of the book, someone walks to him and actually, talks to him, places his hand over his eyes, and he becomes, he can see again. And that one person who did that was the one that actually he was after to kill. And in the book, it is so interesting when, Jesus tells Ananias, you have to go and see Saul. And he's like, how come? He wants to kill me. And he's like, you have to. That is the beginning of his journey, because from that moment on, he needed to understand why the one person that he wanted to kill actually came to save him. And then his journey. We have two people that we're going to be talking also, which are Abigail and Stephen. So Stephen, for the ones who doesn't know, is the brother of Abigail. He was a slave. Abigail thought he was dead or he was gone because they got separated, during, I would say like early teenage years. But Paul has no idea that Stephen is Abigail's brother. And Abigail is almost like his fiance. They were going to get married. So fast forward, some years into that, Stephen comes, he dies, Abigail dies, and he is alone. He's left alone. The love of his life is gone. The brother that he actually was one of the persecutors, he learned that it's, Abigail's brother. At the moment of his death, he actually forgives Saul. And he tells Abigail that he was being truthful to his fate, that he has good in his heart. And I believe that haunted Paul for so many years, because it is difficult to accept forgiveness. I don't know about you guys, but if I feel guilty about something and whoever I did, maybe, there are certain parts of my life that I can think about. And when those people forgave me, it was difficult to move on, because in my mind, my guilt conscience was still haunting me. And when we look at Paul, and he is now learning about this new, the good news, the new doctrine from Jesus, he goes from place to place. During his journey, there are moments that he is very well accepted. He is welcome. He is treated like the most important person. And the next moment, he is getting stones thrown at him. He moves from city to city, and he can't really find peace. In the book, one of the most beautiful moments for me is when he is in the desert, and he meets a couple, Aquila and Prisca. And they are very simple people, they work, they do their own, like manually, they do rugs, and that's how they make their living. So one night they're talking, and the couple starts, to say, we have to flee, our family died, and they go on to say about all the horrible things that this one person did. And he is the person who caused. So at that moment, he sits down, and he opens his heart, and he tells them, I am the one who persecuted, your family or made. So remember, he had a higher rank, so he placed orders. It's not that he was the one actually doing it, but because of what he, think about the army, he had higher rank, so he placed orders and people followed. And they both look at him with compassion, and they forgive him. And he could not understand, how is that possible? When he continues his journey, now already, going through some suffering, he cannot find a place to stay. He goes to the mountains one night, and this is where, our part from, love, work, trust, and forgive comes in. So he is like, there is no place to sleep. He does not have food. He does not have water. He's alone in the wildness. His friends had to leave because every place he went, he was persecuted. So they came to a point where, okay, although we love you, but we need to go different, ways. So he goes to a place where it's like a little, cave. And remember, he comes from a family where he had everything, and now he is at a point in his life where he does not have even like the necessary to live. So he falls asleep, and he prays as he is falling asleep. And as he is falling asleep, he feels like a soft breeze from far away, refreshing his brow, he's burning brown because it was super hot during the day. So he made himself comfortable as he could between the rocks, afraid to leave the friendly silence of nature. And as he falls asleep, he wakes up and he sees something different. You know, the flowers have different colors. The place is a peaceful place. It's beautiful blue skies. And there he is. And then he thinks that he is, you know, along the heavens, because where else would he be for, you know, comparing to the place he was. And then as he is trying to comprehend what's going on, he looks from far, he hears, you know, steps, and he sees that it's Abigail and her brother Stephen. And remember, he's sleeping. So this is during his sleep, which we call the emancipation of the soul. For the ones who doesn't know, that happens every single night when we all go to sleep. We go to sleep and our soul disconnects and we go visit places. In this case, Paul had the ability, you know, to be with his love, you know, bride and Stephen. But he's crying because he's happy, you know. Sometimes, like, it's funny, you know, about pride, because we cry when we're angry, we cry if we're mad, we cry if we're sad, but we cry when we're happy. And I'll tell you something: the happy tears are the best, because it truly shows that we are, you know, giving ourselves into that moment. If you ever have a happy moment that you feel like your tears want to come down, don't cut it. You know, let it come, because it is the moment where we're truly connecting. I always think about this, like, you know, when my family comes from Brazil and we're visiting, because, you know, after a year or two, and then I see my mom and my dad, and we're all crying in the middle of the airport, you know, and people look at us like, what's happening? But guess what? I don't care. Because I stay already for, you know, away for so long, and I'm not going to, you know, cut a moment that is happy, although it's happy tears. So he is, you know, in that moment, he's like crying, and Abigail tells him, get up. No, actually, Stephen says, get up, Saul. What is this? You weep? Asked Abigail sweetly. Would you feel so discouraged when your task has just begun? Because in that moment, through his journey, he has done everything he could possibly do to make atonements to what he has done in the past. It's just like us today, you know. Maybe we could use the example of, you know, a criminal that has committed crimes, but came to his sense, and during this life is working towards repentance, towards making things better. But then we look at those people and we don't fully trust that they're capable of changing. And that's what it was happening with Saul. People would look at him, the ones that were against, and could not trust that he was a changed man. Whereas the other people who already knew him and knew his new heart, they were embracing him. So he had moments of, you know, good place and moments of bad. And this is where his task is actually just beginning. And she reminds him, you know, so you weep? Do you feel discouraged when your task has just begun? And what about us? You know, like Angy mentioned today, you know, being a spiritist group that only has meetings in English. Don't you feel discouraged sometimes? I know we all do. But do we give up? No.
Never.
No. We may, slip here and there, but overall, we never did that. And that was her first invitation, like to kind of shake him and say, okay, did you think it was going to be that easy to follow Christ? Aren't we lucky? Because we can have our faith public. We don't need to hide anymore. During that time, people had to do meetings like in the tapes. Nobody could know about it. Otherwise, they could die. We are so lucky that we live in a time that we can have our faith and freely talk about. We have different, people in our lives that have different religions. I was just talking to John, how in our families we have people with different faiths, but we respect each other. I think this is the biggest lesson about, especially in this book, because there was a faith that was strongly based and there was a new faith coming. People did not know how to respect, or because they didn't understand, they judged. And of course they feared, because guess what? The God they knew was a severe God. We don't know that God. The God I know is a loving and caring. We can say the Father. So we can't judge. Even people that are, around us, sometimes that's how their brain, that's how they are able to understand, the faith, how God works in Jesus. And, some people may not, I was talking to John about spirits, and it's like, some people do not believe in spirits. Are we going to try to shovel down their throats? No. Kardec made sure, to tell, do not. Do what you need to do, and through your work, people will also, understand and join you. But when they're ready. So Saul, he was, in his religion, he was like one of the highest hierarchy. And he left everything behind. He literally left everything behind. When he has this encounter with Abigail and Stephen, she says, you must be faithful to God, Saul, even if the whole world were to turn against you. You would still have the boundless treasure of a faithful heart. And don't we all ever so often go through this? We all go. I became a spiritist in this country, so I have never known about spiritism in Brazil. And I come from a family that the spiritism is a thing from the devil. And when my dad found out that I was a spiritist, oh boy, it took years. I think I'm gonna say that it took 10 years for my dad to accept that I have a different faith than he has. It was never easy, and it's not easy today. But there came a point where he was saying goodbye one day, going back to Brazil. I think this is probably like, maybe 8 years ago or, 9. And at the airport, he looked at me and he was like, I want to say that I'm sorry because I never understood your faith, but it can't be bad. It cannot be something bad because I see good changes in you. And isn't that what, a faith that we have is supposed to do? Connect us to God, and that we can be better people, or a good man, like the Gospel according to Spiritism states. In this point of Saul's life, he was going through that. He had to bring a new teaching, and the world was against him. But then Abigail says, do not refuse to accept great suffering. Empty your mind of worldly thoughts. Once you have exhausted the last drop of the posca of earthly disappointments, Jesus will fill your spirit with light immortal. And during that moment, because I would assume that it was not, like a long meeting. It was probably maybe, kind of short. Because high order spirits do not have time to sit down for more than, let's say half hour, 1 hour with us just to talk about, earthly stuff. But in this case, in his mind, he wanted to know how, to overcome the difficulty and to be victorious at the end. Meaning, what do I need to do in order to achieve what I know that I need? And that's where, she gives him some advice. So he had many questions, and mentally, he asked one question. He did not verbalize. And again, he was sleeping, so this was during his, sleep. And then he asks mentally, what could be done to acquire a perfect understanding of Christ's designs? Because Christ lived a life that is for our time. We don't think it's too huge, let's say. But remember, back then, women had no rights. If your husband died, now you are, you have your own little place where you can only stay. A family member has to take care of you. If you are sick, you are also destined to a place. If you do not have the same faith, you cannot do this or that. Children without parents become slaves. I think we still have some of that going on today in some countries, but overall, it has changed, in 2,000 years. So he wanted to understand what is, how he can acquire a perfect understanding to Christ's designs. And that's when Abigail says, love, work, hope, and forgive. And it's in that order, So we begin by loving. But how can we, because Jesus says, love your enemies. It is difficult to love our enemies. Nowadays, we have memes all over, and I remember one that I saw not long ago that said, I want to love my brother and sister, but they do not help me. Because every single day they're, pushing my buttons. And it is not easy. Waking up every day and having that agenda. I need to love, I need to work, I need to trust, and I need to forgive. It's not easy. But then, if we think about when we love, we understand. In the gospel, does everybody know about the gospel according to Spiritism? Do you have? Okay. There is a passage in the book. I do not remember now the chapter, but I know it's about loving towards criminals. It's something, like that. And it is a very beautiful passage because it talks about a kind of love that we need to show towards people. That is different from, a family member or a friend or someone that we know. But when you look something bigger, someone that committed a crime that you perceive unforgivable. We all have things that we perceive unforgivable. So in that book, in that passage, it's beautiful how, they talk about the love towards criminals. And one thing always caught my attention. It was, if you cannot forgive, pray for them. Because prayer changed people's hearts. And that always struck me because I don't think we give the importance that a prayer, should have. A heartfelt prayer. Sometimes you may just say a simple phrase, but in your heart you feel that, there was a connection. I didn't talk about that topic, a while ago. And I found, someone in Brazil, it's an institution that they help criminals become citizens. Because the rate of someone who leaves prison to go back to crime is 80%. But in this prison, that they have this code, these things that they do to re-socialize these criminals. It's the opposite. Only 20% go back to crime. And then the main thing that this person, the director had was, we love them. They are one of us. So when Abigail asked, love, it's not just loving the ones who, it is actually loving the ones that is the most difficult to love. We have to practice devotion, even if we don't comprehend. And then she goes on to talk about work. We are in a country where work is ingrained in us. I remember my first Christmas here back in 2002. I was shocked that nobody stopped. It was Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and everybody was working. And I'm like, aren't we going to, have that moment with family and say, no, everybody's just moving. But here, the type of work that Abigail is actually inviting, it is the work, towards Christ. It is that road that we take every single day so we can actually be closer. So we can actually be able to live like Jesus wanted. And he really desired, to do so. And for that reason, Saul isolated himself in the desert so he could have his mind in the right place so he can go back into society. And then hope, what would we be without hope? As human beings, I think if we had no hope, we all would be one step closer to, to failing. Hope is, trusting in something you cannot see. I have that in one of my mugs. And it is, just like we trust that our lungs and our hearts are going to do what they should do in order for us to be alive. This is us when we are working, being a spiritist, that's what you do. Every time you have the opportunity of, talking about spiritism to someone new, you're bringing, hope to those hearts. I remember someone, from years ago, we shared different religions, but I always love to talk about, the aspect of Christ. And many times I speak about spiritism without saying the word spiritism. Because at the end of the day, it is all about your actions. I am far from perfect. No, I am far from perfect. But acknowledging that is already a beginning. Because some of us, some people out there, they think that they are already, like this with Christ. That there are, Mhm. But we, as spiritists, we understand our journey. We understand the path we have to go. And then when Abigail, when she said hope, nonetheless, is a gesture of tender solicitude, like someone who wished to clarify that the soul must be ready to attend the divine plan in any circumstance, regardless of any personal whims. It does not matter what we're going through life. We must have hope. There was a moment in my life, maybe back in 2016 and 17, 3 years, between 2015 and 18, I've had like lots of health issues, and I was working a lot. I was in the Spiritist Center 3 times a week. And I had people that told me, why don't you quit going to, the Spiritist Center? Because you're sick, you're working, and then I said, but that is what keeps me going. If I don't, where am I getting, my battery recharged? I always like to joke about this. It's like you come to the Spiritist Center, it's like you recharge your battery for the day. But then I can recognize that in other times of my life, that everything's super fine, I am not as connected as I was when I had a lot of trouble going on in my life. And that intrigues me because, why? I still have to find out why, but, it is part of life. It's like a little, roller coaster, or like our heartbeat, that's why it's like this. If it's this, what does that mean? We're dead. Done. No heartbeat, we're done. But being a spiritist, even if there's no heartbeat, evolution continues. And work and hope continues. But then, Abigail, at this point in the conversation, Stephen had already, he already said goodbye. And Abigail is holding his hand. And then she is squeezed, this is, can you imagine? It's like, think about, your guardian angel or someone who's really important to you, spiritually speaking, that you have that chance of spending, like, say, 5 to 10 minutes. Like we were talking earlier about connecting to guardian angels, imagine you have that opportunity and asking the right questions. Because we're not going to ask, am I going to win the lottery? And you know what I mean?
Why not?
We're past that. So in this case, when Abigail holds his hand, she completes, before saying her goodbye, she gently says, forgive. And that, summarizes. If we think about a mantra for our daily lives, she starts with love, trust, hope, and then she ends with forgive. Because forgiving, I would say, and that's my personal opinion, that it's the most difficult step. But once you are able to fulfill those 3 steps, forgiving becomes easier. So then she shines away, Abigail. And when he wakes up and he has that vivid memory of that, dream, that just happened. He kneels and then he prays again. Takes a while for him to fall back asleep. But then when he wakes up, it's already mid-morning. And then he is intrigued by, that encounter. And then he is asking himself what to do. Because now he has information of how he can, go on. But how can he start? And many times in life, we are at the same point. Maybe we feel stuck. And then it's like, what should I do? I don't know from where to start. Or, should I give up this and restart there? We don't know what's right or wrong. But then he thinks about, and another thing he finds out in his reflection as he wakes up, he realizes that he's not alone. Because that's how he was feeling. He was feeling left out. He was feeling abandoned. He was feeling alone. No matter what he tried to do, people turned their back. And after the encounter with Abigail and Stephen, he says, humans in particular had not been personally abandoned by the supreme powers of the creation. So he realizes that in all those moments, he was never alone. In the book, throughout his journey, there are moments that he can hear a voice talking to him. And in the book, we come to find out that it's Stephen giving him, encouragement, thoughts to move on and not give up and not stop. And then after him experiencing that peace, because again, he was still in the wild. He was laying on rocks, but he had a different perspective. He went to lay down a man and he woke up differently. Just like the message that John read, talking about that we must get ready because we don't know when we're going to go back to the spiritual realm. We have no idea. We all know that we have our tickets to get back home. When? We don't know. I hope it's not too big. I still have a lot of things to do in life, But if it was today, were you ready? Am I ready? I don't think I'm ready. But it's important to think about. So, while he's experiencing that peace, he then has a different understanding that came over him. And now he is happily, restarting his journey in the world. He would guard Abigail's words forever, love, work, hope, and forgiveness would be his inseparable companion. Even if he felt alone, those would be his companion. And then after much thought, he's like, what am I going to do to start over? And he has the idea or the thought, remember, he's in the desert. So after much thought, he decided to buy a loom. It would be the restart of the struggle. In order to strengthen his new inner resolve, he deemed it would be useful to work in Tarsus as a weaver, since in his place of birth, he had once stood out as a worthy intellectual and acclaimed athlete. What a change in one life. He understood that in order for him to stand out, he needed to go back to the beginning, be humble, and then tailor his journey towards greatness. I really think it's beautiful how they mention this part, that Now he's gonna be, a weaver at the same place where he was born and was where he stood a worthy intellectual and acclaimed athlete. It takes a lot to be humble. I think in the world that we live, being truly humble, and I'm not saying, dressing, no, it's about being a humble person. And he then goes on doing his work. And I just want to read the last paragraph where, it talks about his change. So in a short time, he was recognized by his countrymen as a humble weaver. The news had unpleasant repercussions in the former home, causing old Isaac to disinherit him publicly and to move to one of his properties on the banks of Euphrates, I don't know what the name is, it's a city, where he waited his death in the company of a daughter, incapable of understanding his beloved firstborn. So the father could not accept his change. Can you imagine? But I believe, that his dad, after, because we all know about, when we die and leave the body behind, in our spiritual, re-encounter with our loved ones. I'm sure that without, the veil of, the dense material body, we can understand better. And then there he stayed for 3 years, and he became, the Paul that we all know, the Paul that is in the Bible. An example of perseverance, an example of someone who did not give up. I would encourage everyone to reread the book or read the book for the first time so you can get all this information and, and maybe that will be a little spark, to help you and as myself to restart and never stop. So the invitation, to love, to work, to hope, and to forgive, it stands for all of us. And it will stand for, for the ones that are to come. And I hope that, this simple, talk will help you to have that, I don't want to say help. That will inspire you to be better. That will inspire you to help Angy in the Spirit Center, even maybe if it's a study or something, any little help, it's help. And then I just want to finish with something that I have a little note. So, going over the 4 things. Why is it remarkable, these 4 steps? It's remarkable because those who love understand, those who work find balance, those who hope trust, those who forgive free themselves. And, of course, we will notice clear development that lead to a balanced life. It is enough to think and reflect on the depth and reach of such virtues. There is no need to elaborate further. It is better that we pause a minute. So let us go home and reflect on this and, be better spiritists, be better, homem de bem, like Kardec asks us, good man, right? Is that in English?
Yes, the good man.
The good man. And that's, what I have, and thank you for having me. I think I took too long. I just don't know how, what my time was, but,
No,
thank you for the opportunity.
really, really good. And to the ones that never read the book, like many spiritist books, they are really like soap operas. You read And when you see, you are so involved in the story that you feel you were living the story. And my goodness, it's so powerful.
It is.
The passage you just mentioned, that the father could not accept him and told him, leave my house, never come back, that's it. But later on, the father sends money to help him, even don't agree with anything. But the father still loved him, even if in a different type of love, still sends him money to help him to survive. And you know, his journey is truly remarkable, because when you read the book, you understand that Saul, before he became Paul, and for the Catholics, you know, the Christian Saint Paul, he was rich, he was powerful, he was at the top of the legal court and the top of the religious court of their time. So he was like the creme de la creme. And then he was like this fierce persecutor that every Christian was so afraid. And suddenly he changes, and then his friends think he's crazy, because it's like, what? How can a person change from water to wine one moment to the other? And the Christians were like, oh, this guy's crazy. He is doing a plot against us. And he genuinely transformed himself. And as I believe, I don't know if it was Divaldo, Chico Xavier, mentioned that the people who did this automatic transformation was Paul of Tarsus and Mary Magdalene. They were both individuals that in one lifetime, they changed so drastically without looking back. Could we do that? My goodness, that's very hard. Just to think. Changing little bits throughout 30 years was so hard. Can you imagine, like, in a few years, just saying, okay, I love chocolate. Now I'm never going to touch chocolate in my life. With silly things. Imagine with a very, very important subject. So very, very beautiful. Thank you. And I just would like to open up for questions. So my friends online, if you have any question, if you have any comment that you would like to ask Jana, this is your time. And here, so John, go ahead.
Later in life, after Paul was converted, or conversion, after Paul was converted, he became the prosecuted. And how did he finally end his life?
I think it was the opposite.
Was the contrary?
Yes.
He was the prosecutor.
He was the
He
persecutor.
became the prosecuted.
Yes.
No, he was the persecutor.
But then he became.
Became prosecuted.
Okay.
Yes.
The one that was yes.
But how did he end his life? Did they kill him?
So he ends his life in prison, actually. But the years that he, that led to his final moments, he never had, he always had faith. The person who had to take him, to kill him, he didn't want to, but he had to, because that was his job. So everybody, every prisoner that was with him got touched by him. Even in prison, he lived a free life. And I think even in the book, he mentions something. They can, imprison my body, but not my thoughts. So he continued, he lived life, but then towards his end, he was in prison.
And he was
killed.
And this is very powerful as
Yeah.
well, because the soldier was his job. You have to kill this man, kill this man. So the soldier was shaking, so nervous, like, my God, I'm going to kill this saint that nobody understands. Even he couldn't understand. And then Paul looked at him, very sure of himself, said, soldier, do your duty. You will free myself, but you will continue here going through this difficult life. Wasn't exactly these words, but was this meaning. And then the soldier looked at him, and he was a super powerful man, strong presence. But at that moment, he was extremely skinny, very frail, but his energy was so powerful that everybody was shaking to deal with him. And then the soldier killed him. And then there is a continuation of the book when he is free of his physical body. It's amazing book. Amazing.
What's the name of it?
It's Paul and Stephen. That's the name of the book. It's fantastic.
You guys, you're talking about the Apostle Paul.
Right? Yeah. So in this spiritist book, it talks about his life, and then it also shows the spiritual side, what's going on as he has, his journey.
I think all the apostles were killed. All of them.
I'm not sure if
I-
all, because I remember that I saw an article saying about how was the destiny of all apostles. And I remember that one of them, I don't remember
I
who
think
died
Lucas.
as a,
One was not killed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it
One of
says,
them was not killed.
yes, I think
I
there
think
was.
John,
The youngest one.
Yeah,
The
that's
youngest
right.
one didn't have.
Something interesting, if I may add, during these, journeys that they went from city to city, okay? There was always moments where, they would get, people would hit them and Luke, is it Luke in English? Lucas?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Luke was the only one that never got stoned. Every time something happened, he was someplace else doing something. But Luke was the doctor. But Luke was a doctor. So he accompanied Paul so he could care for him. So I think there was a little, merit there.
Yeah, I think in addition to the merit, I think the Spirit said, we need a doctor to be
Yes.
good to help the others.
He needs to be healthy so he can help
He can't
others.
help the others that
But that
will
was
be hurt.
something interesting in the book. They mentioned, that something happened, but Luke was not there when they,
Yes. Yeah, and as we know, there are no chances. It's not that Luke was the lucky guy.
No.
He's always running away when problems are happening. As Jana mentioned, it's a merit and also probably was part of his mission. So he had to be saved to help the others who had to go through problems even bigger. But really amazing.
Because Paul, at the end, even though his body was failing, he did not want to stop. So that's where Luke, was always there to make sure that healthy was. Okay, you need to stop because, your body, and then he would keep going, and,
Yeah. More or less like Allan Kardec.
Exactly.
When the spirits told Kardec, listen, the spirits were not his doctor. The spirit said, you should slow down so you can complete your mission. He's like, whoa, slow, nobody's slowing down here. I need to do as much as I can. And he knew he could. And he did so much that nowadays when we think what he did without computer, without even
with the little lamp,
yeah, with candles and hands, it's just incredible. Let me see. So my friends online, any questions, any comments, anything you want to ask before I stop the recording? Bridget, you understood everything? You are purchasing your book online already? Michael, Matthew?
But
I'm saying
didn't
to
hear-
buy it before the end of the month.
on iBooks is $2.99. So goodbye.
Oh,
On
really?
iBooks, yeah. You can find on Kindle, but iBooks $2.99.
Oh, wow. Listen to
Okay,
that.
I-
$2.99. $2.99.
Can you repeat the name of the book?
It's Paul and Stephen. S-T-E. I think in English it's written P-H-E-N. Okay, my friends.
Matthew raised the hand.
Matthew, okay, unmute your microphone.
Yeah, I already did. So I'm just wondering, like, when's a good when's the convenient time for us to talk about like how we're gonna do it? Because I think I think like I would like my mom to chime in as well, and I'll give you her number if that's all right.
Oh, you're talking about the family spiritist retreat?
Yeah, on the 29th, that event.
You see, he's coming from Texas.
Wow.
So you have to come from Fort Myers with your spiritist center to join us here. So I'm just talking to Jana. Don't worry, we can talk.
Mhm.
Maybe we can talk tomorrow. I'm gonna send you a message, and
All
then
right.
we can organize it better.
All
It'd
right.
be great to have you with us.
All right.
I met someone from Texas at the youth retreat.
But he wants to come to Miami.
Nice.
He has been with us for many years already. Since I was just arrived from New York, he joined me in
That
InnerLight.
would be nice.
Yeah, that would be really, really cool. Okay, my friends, I'm gonna stop the recording and we are gonna go to the passes here. Just one moment.